5, okay. So greedy sentient beings will not accept teachings. Right? That's the one today, right? Yes. So always seeking and never satisfied, our attachment to pleasure gives rise to suffering. And we are in the desires realm. And because of this, we tend to, and also because the way we have been brought up, as I always say to you, the way the world works, we've been asked to get what we want. So this has obviously built greed in our hearts, and we stubbornly, as a result, we cling on to it because we want to be number one. We want to be better than others. So we are cling on to our attachments. So with greed in our hearts, we stubbornly cling to and refuse to distance ourselves from our own attachments. So we thus give rise to afflictions of deviation and do not faithfully accept the Dharma. And it's this what we've been taught to achieve things. And in the Dharma, learning Dharma, we've been taught to let go. So this is obviously, and that's why this affliction deviation arises. So in Master explanation, most people are without greed or attachments. In spite of this, many of us in the human realm are constantly seeking but never satisfied, remain attached to pleasure. So constantly seeking yet never satisfied. And even though you can have millions, you want a billion, and so on and so forth. And that's why it's in the human realm, we measure success by how much you attain worldly materials. And this is a worldly convention that we live in. And from this worldly attachments, or rather these worldly attainments, we get comfort or pleasure arising from that. You give you titles, you get all the wealth, and you can buy all the things that you want. And so as a result, which we've been taught to be attached to the pleasure. So briefly reflecting on this lifetime of ours, how much time have we actually spent handling matters or interact with people calmly with the intention of benefiting them? Interacting with people calmly, but in the course of this early attainments that have been taught to do, we got to drive people to do things the way we want them to do. And so therefore, and also that after that, when we share the results of which, I want a bigger share than average or most of the share that I would as a result of that. So therefore, these two are difficult, and this is where how the world works. So how often have we actually had such a mindset? And this is a question of self-reflecting, ask ourselves, what is exactly that we are actually doing in the way things work? So if we honestly reflect on ourselves, we will be able to know of all seeds we have planted throughout our lives, how many are actually true bodhi seeds and how many are those of weeds. And without this self-realization that I should always mention to you all, if we don't reflect upon yourself, we don't know where we're heading. Much that you have listened to the Dharma, when we apply in the practice and continue to plant weeds in ourselves, how can we then grow a Bodhi tree? So therefore, now we train a child to engage in self-examination from young, and obviously in Tzu Chi International School, we undertake to do that in humanistic values, and my home sister is quite active in doing this, in which I'm very happy that she's doing. So adults have grown to be for control and power, and that's again, that's how the worldly way works, and that's how success is being measured. So this is form of stubborn clinging. I've been taught to be stubbornly clinging to the ways of the world. So in accepting the teachings, and now that we want to say we're going to drop our worldly conventions and let's do it in a spiritual manner and let go. In life, what are we working on throughout our spiritual practice? Now, all of habitual tendencies are not being stubborn on upholding the precepts, remaining steady, and developing wisdom. So in our spiritual practice, what we need to do is to get rid of our unwholesome habitual tendencies and not being stubborn, cling on to all those attachments, and uphold the precepts. Then we can be steady to develop wisdom as we live the wisdom life. So we must find ways to give and to help others instead of asking others to conform to us, which is another form of greed. And so in this form of greed that we want, because we want them to follow what we do, and it's about control of what the ways that how the world should work. So we need to walk the right path. Deviating does not mean believing in a different religion, but about our minds going astray. See, on religious path, there also is spiritual value and to be good. The problem is, and when our mind goes astray, and that's where the problem starts. And in part of the Dharma teaches about universal truth. Universal truth means it doesn't matter what religion or background you are in. That truth is the same. So what concerned the Buddha was his disciples having the 5 chronic afflictions of greed, anger, delusion, arrogance, and doubt, which you all know, which will drive the disciples to act, and the 5 acute afflictions which affect their behavior. And you all know them, but the 5 acute afflictions, which are view of self, extremism, deviation, and so on and so forth, and deviating precepts. So in the Buddha's bequeathed teachings, he continued to teach them on how monastics should engage in spiritual practice, how to interact with people and deal with matters in the daily living. So that, so when you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, right? So for me, when I take refuge in the Buddha, I would say I undertake to have the wisdom mind of the Buddha, and for my speech to abide in the Dharma, and for my body, I will abide in the activities to emulate the Sangha. So that is what we do. I mean, when we take the refuge. So when we understand how the monastic life, they have strict precepts. So therefore, we ourselves, although we only have 5 precepts and take 10 wholesome deeds, we should incumbent upon us to think more than that in terms of our promises and our own pledges. So we do not accept the Buddha's teaching all the morning because we have many affliction and discursive thoughts. Thus, we are unaware ourselves or accept his guidance, and because we are all shrouded and covered by our own cloth of obscuration. So the lessons learned. Sentient beings are foolish. So in this world, they are defiled by their craving for the 6 desires, which bring about suffering and not joy. And this is the indulging in worldly pleasures. At the end of the day, number 1, it will cease. You've got to let go, and then suffering comes. And then joy is only a moment between joy and happiness. And this runs deep, and we can unable to uproot as a result. So when a child wanders off with fleeting greed and attachment, there's nothing the father can do. So therefore, in the sutra was the master mentioned, they just have they let go, but the choice is there. So one of the things for us when born in the human realm, we have a choice. No one, not even the Buddha, can force you to follow the path. So the Buddha is not the only teacher of the Dharma. In fact, everything in this world is teaching the Dharma to us. And that's why that you get solitary realizes even the time without the Buddha. They learn from things around the world. The environment in which we live in is our spiritual training ground. So all of us have a different spiritual training ground because our karmic afflictions are different, our karmic blueprints are different. So our karmic seeds, when they unfold, we got to learn from them. So everyone has Buddhist practitioner, we must learn everything we can from this world, and then we must apply to realize the principles. That only these are the true principles, and that arises from our own realization of the teachings. So in contemplation, learning the Dharma is not about knowledge, but realization of the understanding and how well one has applied the teachings to our daily life to change and evolve. And that is what the Master has been telling us all the time, and you got to ask ourselves how where we are heading. So otherwise, one can just take up a study course of enlightenment. One can just study the way through. So on relationship, a spiritual relationship, be in the path into the mind continuum that is reinforced by our vows. And this is why my master mentioned about aspiration. We got to keep on to that aspiration of ours that we have, so that our practice does not stop in this lifetime, but continue into our future lives. So that life after life, the spiritual relationship that we establish in this life will not fall apart. Now that you have realized the greatest embrace that you can give is to be a worthy son and daughter, living in an exemplary life and faithfully in practice to become a beloved disciple of the Master, so that you too can carry the fragrance and the adornment of the teachings. Okay, brothers and brothers, sisters, thank you. Bit of a rush, but here it is.
Brother, really a